So, Jujutsu Kaisen is almost over. Yeah, after losing MHA not too long ago, I thought I'd give myself more time to reread the series and have a more objective and in-depth look at things, maybe make a video on it, but yeah, that's gonna have to wait till later. Don't worry though, I still got a lot of stuff to unpack here, but as of right now, the job ain't finished, and as downright terroristic as Gege can be sometimes, I ain't waste 5 years of my entire life on this series for nothing, so fair warning, hella spoilers ahead. Again, if you haven't caught up with My Hero, One Piece, and/or Jujutsu Kaisen, it's probably in your best interest to go and do that now. Why? Because I'm sure, as y'all know by now, the vast majority of JJK fans do not know how to read. And if anything, this isn't even just about Jujutsu Kaisen. You can say the exact same thing for any big shonen anime fanbase out there for the past god knows how many years now. One Piece, Naruto, Dragon Ball, My Hero, especially One Piece and Dragon Ball. Of course, while Naruto is a close second, what without bad Rock Lee not hold by the narrative, however, there is a certain level of illiteracy in the JJK fandom that I simply find interesting. Sometimes I find myself genuinely wondering if some of these people are even reading the same manga, or if this is another case of some children needing to be left behind, but alas, I can't say that's entirely unwarranted. Seeing something you love change for the worse isn't exactly the best feeling out there, and in the case of Gege Akatami, I'm not even gonna lie to you, we should have known something was up when you had Mahito explode Nanami, but let Meimei leave Shibuya completely unscathed. In all honesty, I don't think illiteracy is the right word to describe this phenomenon, where people clearly read or have otherwise claimed to have read a story, but still consciously or unconsciously choose to ignore certain themes or concepts laid out in them. Because, you see, people don't actually use logic when they talk about these things. It's not about what they read, it's about agenda. It's not about what they think, it's not about what they've read, it's not about reading comprehension, it's about agenda! Which, of course, brings us to the question you've probably been asking yourself right now. What in the good goddamn even is agenda? And, well, if you've been around anime fans on just about any social media platform these days, you probably have a solid basis as to what it is. Agenda, all things considered, is one of the few terms co-opted by the broader internet community, specifically the anime and manga community, to retain its original definition. You see, in this context, agenda is used to describe a person's plans, feelings, or emotions in regards to a particular subject. Now, what exactly are these plans? More often than not, dare I say never, is it about the actual events of the story or the characterization of its cast. It's actually way simpler than that. Make the characters and stories of the things they like look as good as possible, while making the characters and stories they dislike look as terrible as they possibly can. Why? Well, fuck them, that's why. Or, in more eloquent terms, when people are faced with reality and they learn that the things they love are imperfect, they resort to various means of coping in order to maintain the illusion that the thing they love has no flaws, and as it happens, the easiest way to make one thing look better is to make something else look worse in comparison. Or, in even simpler terms, you don't have to be better. Everyone around you just has to be worse. Why this is a question as old as time itself. However, this wouldn't be a video talking about agenda in anime and manga without talking about the fandom that helped popularize the term itself. The one, the only, One Piece. And given how long it is as a story and how long Oda's been telling us it's gonna end soon, only for it to keep on going on for a couple more years after that, it's safe to say that a story with as much lore and world building as rich and expansive as One Piece is bound to have some kind of debate spark around it eventually. And, mind you, these are One Piece fans we're talking about here, so, of course, these debates often end in the slander of certain characters. You know, Mihawk being a fraud, Eustace Kid being a bum, Shanks being a snitch, Fishman Island Skypiea being a complete ass, Zoro being a racist, and Sanji being... Sanji. Listen, I love Zoro as much as the next guy, but like, come on. Even I gotta admit that Toei did Sanji absolutely horrendous just for the sake of cheap gags. Not that I'm complaining because, again, these are Sanji fans are talking about, but still, it's a shame to see the man's sauce be completely revoked because the people in Toei thought it'd be funny. I mean, yeah, he's still cool, there's no denying that. I very much do still like him as a character, but like, you can only tune out so much, you know? And actually, I believe that the portrayal of Sanji, both the anime and manga, represent one of the core aspects as to why I believe agenda is so prevalent in the current reboot landscape these days. Sometimes, the source material is just on some bullshit. Okay, listen, I love Oda. He's one of my favorite mangaka besides Toriyama, One, Okubo, and Araki. I owe a decent bit of my character design philosophy to him, and as I've made abundantly clear by now, I love One Piece. However, that isn't to say the man isn't without his flaws. Dressrosa was good, yeah. However, if you tell me all that happened in just 3 days, I'm telling you right now, you were smoking dick. Of the many things I can say about people who don't give One Piece a chance, I can't exactly knock them for saying this thing's way too long, cause like, this thing's one hell of a time investment, especially if you're watching the anime and not reading the manga. Tangents about pacing aside, however, let's talk about some real slander. As is the case with pretty much every single shonen battle anime in existence, especially ones with huge diverse cast of characters with unique powers, abilities, and skill sets like One Piece, it has its fair share of power scalers who, as you all know, are the backbone of most anime fanbases. Save for, of course, the Fujoshis, who in recent years are not only single-handedly responsible for ensuring the survival of Kagurabachi, but also a whole lot of the freaky shit happening in the JJK fandom. Tangents about game manga aside, however, as is the case for everyone else really, the more attached a power scaler is to a certain character, the more biased their rulings tend to be. For example, I love Goku. I love Luffy. If the two of them ever met, they'd probably get along great, and technically speaking, they have, several times. However, you have to be smoking top shelf dick to tell me that any version of Luffy can beat any version of Goku past the Frieza, Saiyan Saga. Listen, I love my boy to death, but like, come on, it's not even close. Still, it's not like people hyping up the things they love is a new thing, and like I said earlier, the easiest way to do that is to make something else look worse in comparison. Case in point, the age-old what-if between Mihawk and Shanks. Dracula Mihawk, despite his title as the strongest swordsman in One Piece, is a character with incredibly little screen time, and so, by extension, he doesn't have too many notable feats to his name. Now, pairs with Shanks, another character known for their lack of screen time, while also still holding a lot of plot relevance. Not to mention, he has some of, if not the strongest Haki in the story behind Monkey D. Garp and Goldie Roger. And for those of you who don't know what Haki is, it's One Piece's equivalent to the usual power that's the manifestation of a person's will and ambition. You know, you see it all the time in anime, it's like a physical manifestation of that whole indomitable human will thing, you get the idea. That said, the basic idea is that in One Piece, if you get your Haki up, you can basically do whatever the hell you want. You can predict the future, knock people out by just looking at them real hard, but more importantly, you can coat your body and weapons in it to make them stronger. Now, at this point, you might be wondering why all of this is important. Well, you see kids, Shanks' weapon of choice is a sword, and because of him having the better Haki, some people think that he'd beat Mihawk in a fight. However, due to Mihawk being the best swordsman in One Piece, some people think that because of his better swordplay, he can make up for the gap in Haki, but as I'm sure you all know by now, that ain't gonna stop the agenda. You see, on the internet, there's something I like to call the law of anti-goat/bad bitch coexistence. In essence, the law of anti-goat and bad bitch coexistence states that when two parties are fond of any given thing, they must make it known that their thing is better even when the existence of that thing doesn't impact the quality of the other. And for example, we got Shanks, and we got Mihawk. Now, me personally, look, as much as I do like Shanks, that man's a swordsman, Haki or no Haki. But somehow, amongst certain fans of the character, this is a contentious statement. Because you see, because of his sheer proficiency with Haki, some people claim that Shanks isn't a swordsman, and in the One Piece fandom, a Haki man is a person who uses Haki as a primary means of attack. Now, for certain characters like Monkey D. Garp, you can make an argument, but I'd label him as just a really strong guy who happens to have really good Haki. But the main point here is that since Haki cannot be used as its own attack, but rather a supplement to one's existing abilities, Haki men do not exist. And so, if Haki can be used to enhance one's fighting style and be imbued into one's weapons, and mind you, Shanks' weapon of choice is a sword, what does that make him? That's right, he's not a Haki man, but he's a goddamn swordsman. Granted, again, shit like the Galaxy Impact does exist, so maybe a Haki domain expansion isn't too far out of the realm of probability, but I digress. If it fights like a swordsman and looks like a swordsman, chances are it's probably a swordsman. And you know who's the better swordsman than Shanks? Mihawk. But again, mind you, while Mihawk is the better sword fighter, Shanks does have the better Haki, so really, the question boils down to, does Mihawk have the Haki to keep up with Shanks? But again, tell me this, do you think the average Shanks and Mihawk lasers even care about that to begin with? Like I said earlier, it was never about feats or good faith or objectivity, it was about proving that their favorite character is the coolest and strongest in the entire series. It was never about the facts, it was about the agenda. Now, for example, while Mihawk might have folded the entirety of Don Krieg's feat and left without taking out Don Krieg himself because at the time, he didn't have much to gain from doing so. And while this is the same guy who took out a less experienced Sora with an actual butter knife, please consider the following. Not only is it more funny to call Mihawk a bum considering his history of avoiding unnecessary fights, it also plays into the agenda that Shanks fans are putting everything into maintaining. Sure, the fact that Mihawk infuses Sword of Haki so much that his blade literally has turned black already implies that he's incredibly skilled, I can't deny that those memes saying that Mihawk just painted the sword black to look stronger are pretty fucking funny. But at the same time, we can say much of the same about Shanks. For example, if his hockey is so good, why not just use armament hockey to protect his arm and keep him getting ripped off by that sea monster? Did Shanks want to teach Luffy the importance of sacrifice and protecting things he cares about? Did Shanks not have the time to think about in such a dire situation? Did Oda simply just not think that far ahead and add hockey later, not knowing the implications it'll cause in the future? I don't know, but hey, I'll tell you this. It is kinda funny to see one of the strongest people in the series get his ass kicked by a sea monster. I mean, obviously, Shanks isn't a snitch, like, he lost his arm in order to protect his adoptive son, but like, at the same time, I felt like me, all I'm saying is, Mihawk wouldn't let Zoro get turned into a donut. For many, maintaining the agenda is top priority, and as it happens, Slander is one of the easiest ways of making sure that agenda stays maintained. And speaking of Slander, My Hero Academia has been getting a lot of it ever since it came out, but ever since it ended this last arc, oh boy, things have gotten much more interesting. Of course, you got things like the anime's art direction, what with every single scene in the war arc being animated in front of the clearest blue skies imaginable, but that's a topic for another video. Instead, let's turn our attention to the number one reason outside of the series' fanbase as to why My Hero Academia as a story has been dunked on since day one. Its protagonist, Izuku Midoriya, aka my boy Deku. Deku, while he still does have many of the typical shonen battle anime protagonist characteristics, he does have a few key traits that set him out from the rest. The most important of them being, he's a very forgiving and empathetic guy who's pretty open about his emotions, which isn't a bad thing. However, you have to remember that this is a video about slander. Because, you see, in many respects, I believe that My Hero Academia, and particularly Midoriya himself, are kinda like the Steven Universe of Shonen Jump. For example, their protagonists are more honest and gentle in comparison to some of their contemporaries. They have stories that touch upon the theme of passing on the will of those who came before you and generational trauma, conclusions that feel rushed for one reason or another, and not to mention, notoriously rancid fan bases. Now, admittedly, these comparisons are surface level at best, but much like Steven Universe, while My Hero Academia does have its fair share of flaws, many of them are drastically overblown by its detractors. One of, if not the biggest form of slander I have ever seen in anime and manga, hell, storytelling as a whole, is a simple removal of nuance and mischaracterization from those who either got their opinions from somebody else, or have engaged with it personally but didn't get the point or otherwise didn't like it for a whole variety of reasons. And again, much like a boy Steve-O over here, many people actually misconstrue Midoriya's empathy and being open about how he feels as weakness and him being a crybaby. But in particular, this is mostly seen in conversations about Bakugo being forgiven despite bullying Deku for most of his life. Which, to be fair, all I'm saying is, Deku's a better person than me, because me personally, the second I get one for all, talk crazy all you want, just know your ass getting put into a Tekken comp and thinking shit was sweet. But at the same time, Deku's empathy and willingness to put others before himself and what he wants is why he's such a good hero to begin with. So, suffice to say, he is a better person than me. In fact, he's a better person than a lot of the people in My Hero to begin with. That's why All Might chose him as the successor to One For All in the first place. And again, spoilers to the end of the series, so if you care about the kind of stuff and or you're not caught up yet, now's your chance to skip out. I'll put a timestamp up in post when it's safe, and I'll drag this out just a little bit longer to the people watching this in the background. You on the same page? Cool? Cool. Anyway, yeah, that's probably why he ended the series quickless. Now, was that kind of bullshit? Oh, absolutely. But at the same time, I can't lie and say that I don't see why it happened. Undeniably, it would have been much more fun if Deku didn't have Shigaraki/Tenko take his chain to the grave with him so he could actually use One For All to its fullest one day, but at the same time, up until that point, All For One had been terrorizing the entire world of My Hero Academia for over a century now, and his brother Yoichi passed down One For All for the sole purpose of making sure that Big Shiggy wouldn't ruin everything for everyone else one day. And as painful as it was to watch, I won't deny, having the cycle end completely with both the destruction of All For One and One For All does make sense thematically. Something as cool as seeing One For All continue to get passed down from generation to generation to symbolize how everyone needs someone to look up to could have been. Maybe Horikoshi could have played the idea of One For All growing too strong and dangerous with its ability to store quirks, and then that risk would lead Deku to give it up after retiring because the societal changes brought about by the war arc would put an end to, or at the very least, severely decrease villainy as we know it. I don't know, I'm just spitballing here, I could probably think of something better with a little more time.
That said, I do think Deku getting an Iron Man suit like All Might did after being a teacher for a few years was a good compromise. That way, he still has a shot at being the #1 hero in the literal sense instead of just metaphorically. Even so, while being a teacher did fit Deku, the entire point of him as a character was that even if he could still be a good, successful person that helped people without the need of a quirk, that wasn't Deku's dream. Deku wanted to be out there in the field boxing villains because that's what All Might did. And even when reality came and the pimp slapped him across the face, he held out hope that somehow, someway he'd get into UA. Don't get me wrong, I understand the logic behind the Horikoshi's writing just fine. I just don't care. Regardless of how logically sound it is, I can't help but shake the feeling that Deku becoming a teacher because he couldn't be a pro hero anymore is just him settling, even if he did have the absolutely legendary run beforehand. Sure, I love to participate in Deku Slander myself from time to time, but I won't lie. Those McDonald's Deku jokes did hurt a little because I still love the guy a lot. I might not enjoy it as much as I did then, but I can't deny the impact My Hero Academia had on my life, and the reason why I like talking shit about it to my friends is because I wanted it to be better. I wanted it to captivate me the same way it captivated me back in middle school, and while you could make the argument I just grew out of it, me and the thousands of other people singing the praises of the opening arcs of My Hero have to disagree. Every time I see All Might punch that Nomu into the stratosphere, or United States and smash off one's face to the ground, or that one fight between Fat Gun Kirishima and Rapper, or Mirio sacrificing his quirk to save Eri, I'm reminded of why I ever loved the show to begin with, and I stuck around because every so often, I would get glimpses of the story I grew to love so much. And really, I could say much of the same for Jujutsu Kaisen. Say what you will about Gege Akatami, and let's be real, that man is a fucking terrorist, but at the end of the day, of all the things I can say about him, I can't say that he's a bad writer. I think the biggest reason why Jujutsu Kaisen story is the way it is now is that first and foremost, the weekly chapter schedule wasn't exactly the best for Gege. Hell, he said as much himself, the Culling Games is supposed to be more of a traditional tournament arc, but then he realized he did not have the time to make it an option, so he did what he could, and all things considered, what we got wasn't too bad. We got more Choso development, Hakuya vs Kashimo, Higuruma, Maki's Awakening, Yuta's Run in Sendai, the list goes on. However, and again spoilers, now's your chance to hop off the anime only. But we can all agree that what Kenjaku pulled on Yuki was some old bullshit, right? And speaking of Yuki, wasn't it just a little fucked up we never got any interaction between her and Toto before she got spaghettified? Come on, the potential interaction between her, Toto, and Choso could have been insane. Just imagine it, Toto being there to talk about what it meant to be a good brother with Choso before they go on to dog the fuck out of Naoya together. Now, do I understand why Toto was gone for so long? Yes, of course I do. You can't have Sukuna knowing that the god of mix-up is still out there. The same goes for Nobara coming in clutch-popping resonance of the last Sukuna's fingers while Yuji was still beating the fuck out of him to save Megaman. Do I understand why Yuki never got the Papa Domain expansion? Yes, she was specifically using Simple Domain instead because fighting Kenjaku with the technique was already burning through enough of cursed energy as is. Do I understand why Gojo didn't kill Sukuna himself? Yeah, thematically it would be a little cheap if the strongest, most emotionally isolated man of today beat the strongest, most emotionally isolated man in history while proving Sukuna was right about what it meant to be strongest would kinda blow. Not only that, but Gojo also got snugged by the one attack Sukuna had that ignored Limitless. Do I understand why Megami didn't fight harder to get his body back? Well, yeah, it sucked to watch, but like, he's still a teenager. A teenager who was being possessed by one of the most comically evil people in history, to use his body to kill his sister, who, mind you, at the time, was also being possessed by one of the other most comically evil people in history. Do I get why Gege killed my boy Nanami, but kept Diddy's disciple Meimei around? Nah, not really, no, she could have died for all I cared, but even so, Nanami's death, paired with Nobara getting her face exploded in Toto's speech, did help Yuji understand the full ramifications of what it meant to be a Jujutsu sorcerer. But repeat after me, I did not care. And in the end, that's why Nanami had to die and Meimei got to live. Gege knew we wouldn't care if Meimei got dusted by Mahito instead, so in order to make us show how dramatic things could get, Nanami had to die, even if it meant keeping Epstein's strongest soldier around till the series ended. But hey, the good news is we got a few more weeks until JJK ends for real, so here's hoping Meimei can die of a heart attack or something off screen by the time that happens. Here's hoping. But in the end, at the very least, we got to see Yuji get his happy ending with Megami and Nobara. And not only that, but my glorious King Elri Toga can spend the rest of his days playing Posekai and going to Takadajan's concert from here on out. And as questionable as some of the writing decisions made throughout JJK have been, I've stuck around for this long, so hey, that has to count for something, right? I think that outside of dunking on things you don't like just being plain fun, one of the biggest reasons why we slander our favorite series is because, like I said earlier, we know they can be better, and sometimes, if you want someone to be better, you just gotta be heard on. While I do believe in constructive criticism, we only have so much sway in the writing of our favorite stories, if any at all. So if there isn't anything we can do about how it's gonna end, why not try to have a little fun in the process? I mean, that's part of the fun of storytelling as a whole, imagining what could have been and how you would have handled things if you were the person telling the story. The many different interpretations of the creator's will and the ideas that can spawn in those in the audience are what makes storytelling storytelling. Now, say what you will about Slander as a whole, and yeah, some niggas are just Debbie Downers for the love of the game. However, spite is one of the greatest motivators out there. If someone sees value in something, and that something was so clearly executed to the point that someone decides they can do better and create something of their own, proving that it can work with the proper care, I mean, hey, it's how I got DreamWorks and Dragon Ball Super. And when you think about it, love really isn't the true opposite of hate. They might seem like opposites on paper, but regardless, they both imply a deep level of passion. Even if you hate something with your entire being, the fact that you're willing to admit that you hate it means that you care enough to feel strongly about it to begin with. What did Junpei say? Love isn't the opposite of hate, it's indifference. Love and hate are two different forms of passion. They're opposites in the sense that they're on the opposite end of the same spectrum, but since they're on that same spectrum, that means they're alike to an extent. But indifference means you never care to begin with. Your life would be the same with or without it. People love to call things mid nowadays, so much so as you describe things that are bad, when really, mid just means decent, alright, mediocre, middling. When faced with something truly mid, you can't really slander it. You can try, sure, but at the end of the day, there's nothing else to hate. Slander requires passion, and without that, what's the point? Why would I invest time in slandering something that not only I don't care about, but nobody else cares about to begin with? What do I look like talking down about something I don't really care about to begin with? I don't know, man. What I guess I'm trying to say here in all of this is that if you think you can do better, go on, try and do better. It might not work out, sure, but hey, at least you can say you tried. Like I said previously, if it wasn't for Dragon Ball Evolution being so unbelievably ass, Toriyama wouldn't have continued Dragon Ball into Super because he didn't want that movie being the last thing to come out of that franchise. The franchise which at that point was more or less his baby, pun somewhat intended. And I suppose what else I'm trying to say is just because a story sucks, it doesn't mean that it was entirely without merit. And with enough care, maybe the ideas it had could eventually go on to inspire something better. And if not, there's always next time. Anyway, yeah, that's all I got. If you did enjoy the Yap Sesh, don't forget to like and subscribe. You already know what it is out here. But genuinely, thanks for sticking around this long. It does mean a lot. So, yeah. Thank you for coming, thank you for staying, and thank you for watching the show. Take care of yourself. See ya.